Hey Mom. So I was looking at this book after you left, and I'm certainly no professional, but I thought maybe I could give you like a place to start with a couple things that you could potentially do for your hips that might help. Um, and I thought it was a really nice little book actually, and some good ideas. So I was just gonna run through a short little flow of yoga moves, some recommended in here and some that just seemed like maybe a good idea based on other things I've done, that might be able to help you. And you're welcome to follow along and do it if you want to. And if you don't want to, cool. Or if you just think of it throughout your day and you have time for like one little pose or one little move, one is always better than none. So I just figured a place to start might help. So the thing about yoga, I guess I'll put this over here. The thing about yoga that's similar to a lot of exercise is like the details do kind of matter, but it's great because you can start, in a general way, and over time, like that's why they call it a practice. Over time, you start to notice different things in your body and get more in tune with some details of how your body's working, or maybe you start to feel like the energy flowing instead of, when you start it might just all be stiff and feel weird, and you get through the poses and that is your big win. And then the more you practice them, the more that they might start to feel different and really become something you enjoy, maybe, or maybe you hate it the whole time. It's totally possible as well. But I say that to say that if anything that I say trying to describe this to you sounds really weird or makes no sense, either it's really weird and makes no sense and never will because it's just in my brain, or maybe over time you'll be like, oh, I think I feel that. And then that opens up a whole new pathway for you to explore movement. So it's really just about playing in your own body and trying to unlock places that are locked, lengthen things that are shortened, unblock energy that's stuck. And you tend to experience that kind of energy through cramps or through pain or through a feeling of compression and things like that. So anyway, that's why I used to love yoga back in a previous life when I did it. So we usually say when we start a yoga class to set your intention when you come onto the mat. And if you don't have a mat, that's totally fine. You have a floor, and we won't do anything that will get you too far into being slippery or anything like that. But, claim your space. And when you come into it, just close your eyes for a moment and set your intention. And maybe that is just to play and be open to the idea of play in your body. Or maybe that is the idea to stick with it through the end, no matter how it feels. Or maybe it's the intention to be kind to yourself and use this as a time for self-care. It could be something totally different, but whatever your intention is, set your intention for today. And if you ever get distracted or kind of overwhelmed during the practice, come back to your intention, and that'll help you keep moving through in the way that you intended. So the first thing we want to do is look at our feet. You want your feet right underneath of your hips, and your hips are not as wide as most people think they are. You should have about a dollar bill's width between your feet. So you're not out here, you're not side by side. It's about a dollar bill's width. And you can just rock back and forth from heel to toe. You can already feel that movement in your spine. You might feel like you're going to tip over backwards on your heels. It challenges your balance, just that little motion. But it also helps you to kind of feel the whole surface of your foot on the floor. Because to get really grounded, imagine this is my foot, heel, pinky toe, big toe. We want to be pressing down through the whole foot, through the heel, the big toe side of the bottom of the foot, and the little toe side of the bottom of the foot. And that, if we think about pushing down, gravity will keep us on the ground, obviously. And so a lot of us, when we stand, we just are letting gravity do the work. And the only muscle engagement that we have is making sure that we don't fall over. But if you think of pushing down through the floor to keep yourself up, all of a sudden you can feel muscles in your legs activate. You can feel muscles around your hips. You can even maybe feel your core activate. And by being intentional just about standing, we're engaging all of this musculature that is going to help us avoid pain in the long run because the muscles are doing the work instead of the joints just absorbing gravity. So that's just a small little thing. So my feet are about $1 bills width apart. They're right under my hips. Maybe I want to look and see if the outsides of my feet are parallel, because the foot is a little bit of a wedge. You can have it so the insides are parallel or the outsides are parallel. Maybe the outsides are parallel. That gives us a little bit more engagement in the legs again, and that musculature again is helpful. When you bend at the knees, when your outsides are parallel, you kind of feel you almost need to be pushing your legs out in order to keep your legs in alignment, which engages these muscles around these hips. And then maybe it engages a little bit of the core muscle as well. Anyway, you can overthink that as much as you want, or you can just say, hey, I'm gonna stand on the mat and we're gonna go forward. So the first thing that we're gonna do is fierce pose. And I should say, my back is jacked up, my shoulders are jacked up. I'm not gonna look exactly like these poses are supposed to look. But again, we're all in our own bodies and our bodies are beautiful, and maybe yours doesn't look exactly like a textbook picture either when you end up in the pose, or maybe it does. But fierce pose is gonna look like this, and you can just watch me first. You're gonna come up, the arms come up, the shoulders theoretically roll down the back, and you sink your hips a little bit, not all the way into a chair pose, but just sort of like halfway. And my pinkies draw in toward each other, and my butt is back, and my hips are engaged, and I feel my whole body working a little bit to keep me here. So from the side, it's gonna look like this. My hips are dropping back, my body drops down, my shoulders drop down, but my arms reach up, my head reaches up, and my body is at a little bit of an angle going this way. So the whole point of this one for right now is really just we're activating the hips and we're activating the core, and we're exploring a little bit of tilt. So we're gonna come up, do it with me this time. Come up, turn the pinkies in, drop the hips. And you can bounce a little bit, just explore whatever feels good to you. I like a bounce in this pose because it helps me feel like my hips get a little bit free from the last couple of vertebrae of my spine, like a little bit of a doing, doing, doing kind of feeling. I like it. You might not. You might like to do a little bit of a side to side, like a little bit of a smile with your hips. You might not. And then you can come up and come to mountain pose. So the chest comes up, head comes up, shoulders roll back, palms face front of the room. And we'll do this a few more times, and I'll turn so you can see it at different angles. So we come up, drop down, hold for a few breaths. You might feel like your ribs are kind of flared like this. I feel that in mine right now. You want to tighten the core and tuck the tailbone a little bit. Adjust your pelvis. So my pelvis is like way tipping out this way. My booty's out. I want to come tuck it in a little bit, and this is what the bounce helps for me. It helps me get into that alignment. And I want to engage my core muscles, not like suck it in, but engage my core muscles in a strong way. Think about drawing the navel to the spine, and that engages my core, and then I end up in a pretty strong position, and I can feel my quads burning, and I can feel my core active, and I can feel my hands up. And then I come to mountain, and I'm pushing actively through my feet to stand tall. I feel my leg muscles still active, even though they're getting a break. My chest is up, my head is up, my shoulders are down, my heart is open, my hands are open. And one more time, I come down to fierce pose, and I channel my inner fierce, because we've been here a little while now. And I'm thinking about my butt going down into the back corner of the room, and my hands and my head going up into the top corner of the room. And that's creating a nice stretch this way. So I'm letting my core kind of squeeze in and stretch out almost like a tube of toothpaste. And then I come back to mountain. All right, you feeling good? I know you're feeling good. You're looking good too, mama. All right, anyway, I have a couple of props here. So you probably don't have yoga blocks. I can send you some. You probably do have a chair or two. You may or may not have a strap. You can use a belt, you can even use a towel. The next thing I want to do, the chair is probably the best bet. And depending on the size of your chair, you might want two. So this, I want to get so that my hands, I'm going to bend over here like this. I want to get so that my hands are pretty much right under my shoulders, just the same way that my feet were under my hips. So if one chair is too narrow to do that, then just have two side by side. And what we're going to do is cat and cow in a modified position. So instead of being on my hands and knees on the floor, I'm going to engage my core, bend as much as I can at the hip, and come down to this position. And for me, my back is always jacked, so I like just kind of moving it around like this before I do too much. So this is going to get a little bit of spine mobility and a little bit of hip mobility. And it's also going to warm us up for the next couple of moves. So first of all, check in with your shoulders. You're putting some weight in your arms. So I can feel I'm hunched. I want to roll my shoulders down the back and have a nice open chest. I can also feel I'm letting my belly drop a little bit. I want to, again, think navel to spine and think head this way. My head energetically is reaching this way. My booty energetically is reaching that way. I'm getting along in the middle of my body and strong through my core. So I'm not dumping in anything. And the stronger I am, the sort of easier it is to go through these motions. So now that you're all in your tabletop pose, you're going to breathe in, look up, and look at my hips. I'm letting it bend up. And I'm channeling like my inner cow. Like I'm picturing a cow in India with those big hip bones that all just stick out. I'm thinking about that. And then I'm going to exhale, draw my navel really strongly to my spine, round my back like a Halloween cat hissing, or like Bubba. Oh, and maybe you switch side to side like I am right now, maybe you don't. And then we drop back down to cow. I'm sticking my head up, my hips up, I'm letting the belly drop. Exhale, draw the belly button into the spine. I'm pushing through my feet, I'm pushing through my hands. I'm letting my head drop. I'm gonna do it one more time. Cow, inhale. Exhale, cat. Tucking those hips under, taking whatever motions feel good in your body to work out any tension in your hips or low back. And then return to neutral. Bend the knees slightly and roll up. All right. The next thing we're going to do is building off of that. So in that exercise, we bent down this far, and you can tell we're using our hips as we bend. We're using all of this big muscles through the hips to bend that way. So we're going to go into some more forward bending to whatever depth is comfortable for you. So that might be just back to this chair again. This might have been a lot. For a lot of people, this is a lot. If that was not a whole lot for you, if you didn't feel tension like in the backs of your legs or through your hips when you did that, if this felt fairly comfortable, then you want to find a prop to take you a little bit lower. So a shallower chair or maybe some yoga blocks. Move this out of the way. Ouch. And then whatever that height is for you, you'll set your prop on the floor. Again, you want to aim so that your hands are going to end up under your shoulders, not super wide or super narrow, and that'll help you keep your balance. And as you bend, here, I'll bring it to the front. As you bend, you're still keeping your hips over your feet, shoulders over hips, etc., etc. So we're going to stretch up, really push into the floor with your feet, stretch up with your hands, bring your hands to your heart, engage your core, bend down, press your hands into your support. Breathe in, draw your hips back, breathe out, head forward. Breathe in, breathe out, bend a little lower. One more time, breathe in, draw your head forward. Breathe out a little bit lower. Exhale, bend your knees slightly and roll up one vertebra at a time if you can, up and down. We'll do that once or twice more. Inhale, up. Engage that core. I'm going to do this from the side so you can see some little pluses and minuses of how we can do this. So engage your core here. Ooh. See, when I engage my core, I had my hips kind of sloppy, dipped back, loose front. You go engage that core. It evens out a little bit. I stretch up. Exhale down. I'm trying to keep my core straight. It's really easy to let it pooch. You really have to work to keep your core engaged. And then you come down to here and just hold it for several breaths. And as you're here, maybe you're thinking about your spine growing longer, your tailbone shifting to the back of the room, your head shifting forward, and the traction that puts your spine in just by using your own muscles to do that. Or maybe you notice it feels good to have a little wiggle waggle in your hips. Maybe you like to bend and straighten your knees. That engages different muscles in the backs of your legs. Or maybe it feels good to bend down even further. Just make this pose your own. And when you notice an area that's a little sticky or icky or tight, send your breath to that place. Just stay with it a little bit. Don't push it further. Just notice it. Observe it. Send your breath there with loving compassion. And see if maybe you can allow that place the space to relax and release. Bend your knees. Roll up, one vertebra at a time, head coming last. Arms up and down. And I should say, with blood pressure issues, do that very slowly and check in with yourself. Going from a bent position to an upright position can make you pass out if you have blood pressure issues. So I probably should have modified this first, but if you're in a very bent position, if your head is at or below your hips, you may want to come down first. Drop your hips instead of raising your head. Allow yourself to come to equilibrium here, and then come back up. Or, have someone with you to watch you and help you. I don't want you passing out. Okay. And then the last active sequence I wanted to show you is Warrior 1 to Warrior 2. So the warrior poses, warrior like battle, not warrior like The warrior poses are kind of like a staple to yoga flows. And I really like the Warrior 1 to Warrior 2 for hips because it allows you to open and close your hips on each side while keeping muscular tension. So take one leg, let's say I'm going to step my right leg back, you mirror me, whatever that is for you, and step it back to sort of a high lunge. Just whatever is comfortable for you to where you start to feel a little bit of tension through the front of the thigh. And that might be in here close for you. I can't say what it is in your body, only you can say what it is in your body. For me, it'll be right about here. And you'll notice my feet have some space in between them this way. I'm not back this way. They're apart. My front foot, the toes point directly forward. I'm pressing down through the whole foot, but especially through the heel. See, I can lift up my toes. The back foot, the toes are angled off to the side, and I'm pushing again through the whole foot, but I'm really thinking about the outside blade of my foot and pushing through that. So to start, warrior typically has arms up, but since we're focused on the hips, let's put our hands on our hips. And I don't mean like sassy up here. I mean literally find your pelvis and hold it. So like if this were my pelvis, which is a decent representation, I'm trying to grab right here. So my goal is to feel what my body is doing. So I've got my hips, and at this point, my hips should be facing straight forward. Shh, shh, shh. No bark, no bark. Shh, no bark, no bark. Hey, I'm filming for your mom. I'll be with you in a second. I'm filming some yoga for your mom. For her hips. So yeah, so your hips should be like this. And that might be your entire work. Maybe while I stand here and do a few other things, you're standing in this position trying to keep your hips from being dumped forward like this, or maybe cockeyed like that, or you know, they could be in any position just depending on how your body is set right now. So maybe this is your work, is just to get to right here. If you feel like, okay, Ben's like smiling at me over here. If you feel like, okay, I'm relatively square, and we're not aiming for perfection, right? But I'm pretty much there. You know, I'm not so, you know, off center that I can't stand or something like that. I'm ish there, right? Sort of here, like this. Then we're going to think about this hip as sort of being the hinge side of the door, and this being like you have a door handle and you're going to open the gate. So warrior 1 is squared to the front, don't move yet. Warrior 2 is open out to the side. So we go from this kind of position to this kind of position, and you notice my front foot doesn't move. My front hip ideally doesn't move other than in a twisting fashion. So we're gonna, again, keep our hands on our hips for right now. So we just say warrior 1, slide the back foot behind us just a little bit so my heels now are in a line, and then I'm in warrior 2. And I know my posture is probably awful. Ideally, I'm sort of flat this way. So I'm like a wall. My foot, my knee, my hips, my shoulders are all flat and sort of in a line. Haha. And then I'm going to check in again on my hips. So I'll turn this way. You don't turn. I'll turn this way so you can see. Something that happens a lot when we get to warrior 2 is maybe we're cockeyed like this now, right? We want to aim to come to level and not be this way or this way, but to be, again, open. All right. So we'll just do that a few times. Warrior 1, warrior 2. Inhale, warrior 1. Take a breath. Inhale, and then exhale, warrior 2. Check in with my hips. Whoa. It's okay if you lose your balance. It's better to play and see what's going on in your hips than to do nothing. Back to warrior 1. Ooh, warrior 2. And you can feel how when you turn your hips, it then turns the rest of your body as well. Everything's connected. All right, we're going to take the back foot and bring us forward into fierce pose from the beginning. Up and then down. And then we're going to do this again on the other side, and I'm going to focus more on where your breathing comes in. Breathing is actually really important in yoga, and shame on me for really not cueing it too much throughout this, but there's just so much to cover, and you know, whatever. It's a step 1. All right, so we're going to breathe in, arms up. Exhale, hands to hips. Step your other foot back into warrior 1 legs. Check in with your body, check in with your hips. I feel like I'm a little bit cockeyed on this side this way, so I'm going to work on figuring out which little muscles in my body I can tweak to come back into level, so I can think about pushing this right hip down a little bit and tightening my left butt cheek, pushing through the outside of the blade of that foot to get me into a stronger position so I'm not dumping into that hip. And maybe I come closer to level. Again, perfection isn't our goal. Inhale, exhale, sweep that leg behind you a little bit so the heels are in a line. And as you breathe in and out, just play with the alignment. See where it's sticky and icky. See where you feel strong. See if you can use the strength that you feel to build upon that. Inhale, exhale back to warrior one. And if you build on your strengths, maybe you can help to improve those places where you feel a little weak or a little bit stuck. Inhale, exhale back to warrior two. And if you feel good, if you do this a few times, I'll replay the video a few times, maybe inhale and exhale. Maybe it does make sense for you to add the arms, and then you can, give yourself a little help, do some stretches through the arms. Inhale and exhale. Oh, I'm off my mat. There you go. All right, inhale, exhale. On the next inhale, stay strong in your front leg, step the back leg forward, hit that fierce pose. Inhale up, exhale down. Hands to heart center. Check in. Remember your intention for today. Without judgment, see if you feel like you are true to your intention. Thank yourself for making time to come onto your mat and for trying something new. All right, if you have time for part two is going to be much more relaxing. So these were some energetic poses. I have two restorative poses, which means basically lying on the floor in a particular shape that I think would be really excellent for you too. And they're particularly great, to do. If you do them both in a day, if you do both the active and the restorative, it's really great to do the restorative after the active because you've already got that energy flowing, you've got the muscles warmed up a little bit, and now you're giving them some love. But depending on how you feel on a given day or how much time you have, you might only do one or the other, and that's totally fine too. Do what works for you. All right, namaste. The light in me honors the light in you.